speculation. Look at the credit crunches that have happened and the number of suicides that have taken place as a result of people who've lost their belongings. I think one of the biggest lessons was to respect everyone. It was very bad in the sense that, based on your skin color, you're allowed in certain areas and you're not allowed in certain, to live and to work and so on. And I sent a message to say, please do not penalize, excuse them, forgive them. What's important is, as I grew up, we were fearful of scholars. There was definitely a gap. I was going to follow medicine and I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. I felt so proud that day of the ummah. And I said, Subhanallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to another episode of the Muslim Money Experts.
Our next guest needs no introductions. From flying on jetpacks, dropping out of planes, to inspiring a generation of Muslims, Mufti Ismail Menk has done it all.
It was amazing to hear from him about his early life, about jetpacking, his view on wealth and the Muslim economy, and our interactions with social media.
This was a really thought-provoking episode, one that is filled with gems on how we can become better Muslims in today's society, how we can create a true Islamic economy, and the best ways we can manage our time in a digital world. Really hope you enjoy it. Mufti, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the Muslim Money Experts podcast. It's a genuine honor to have you.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khair. The honor is mine. Barakallah feekum.
So we're going to be asking you a series of questions, inshallah, but we want to go back and we want to rewind back and find out about how before Mufti Menk became Mufti Menk. So back in Zimbabwe, your childhood, can you tell us a bit more about your childhood, what interested you and how things were growing up?
SubhanAllah, it depends how far you want to go back,
Well, Umar just said when you were mini Menk.
Oh, mashallah, mashallah.
Mini Mufti, mashallah.
Yeah.
My father was an imam in the main masjid there, and I was born in the compound of the masjid, meaning when my parents were living in the compound of the masjid. So I come from a relatively religious home, conservative, alhamdulillah. And as I grew older, because my father was teaching Quran and Arabic and a few other things, we picked up on that. I remember when I was a very little kid and there were people who used to come to do the hifz and so on. I picked up the Quran and some of the passages and I'd memorized them as a little kid, and people were very impressed to say, wow, this little child is reading. There was an uncle who used to give me a little bit of money, a cent, every time I read something. Little kids. And then as we grew older, I started, the school of grade 1 to the British system. Grade 1 to 7 we have. And together with that, I did my hifz as well. And I studied Arabic language very early. So by the time I finished with primary school, I was completed with my hifz. In fact, I was almost completed my hifz. And I had relative knowledge of the Arabic language. It wasn't, absolutely perfect or anything. And I'd already studied quite a bit of Islam. Like, I would have been able to answer a lot of questions at that time. And I was still a kid graduating from primary school. Went into what we call Form 1 or Grade 8, according to some. And then I diversified a little bit more. I used to go to school in the morning. We had sports activities in the afternoon, and in the evenings I was with my father and studying the books and learning. We used to travel to it's a 10-minute journey to the madrasa that he had established. And mashallah, there was a lot that happened. And before I knew it, I'd found myself in Medina Munawwara. I'd completed my O-levels. And subhanallah, it was a journey that Allah had chosen.
Being in Zimbabwe, as far as I'm aware, the population of Muslims is quite low, is it? It's 1%, it's not many?
Well, it's more than 1%, but the official figures put it at 3%. Mm-hmm. Because the population of Zimbabwe is something that's unique. There are so many Zimbabweans outside of Zimbabwe, starting with South Africa, probably 1 million or more. And there are so many here in the UK and elsewhere. It's quite difficult to say this is the population. But alhamdulillah, the last census that they had, they put the Muslims at 3%. So mashallah, that's close on to 1 million Muslims.
And the Muslims in Zimbabwe, Mufti, where would you say, are they ethnically local or quite diverse?
Yes, so from the 3%, 95% are locals.
MashaAllah. Okay.
Yes, and generally below the poverty line. A small percentage are actually ethnic Indo-Paks. There's a few, some Arabs,
Yeah.
ethnically Lebanese and Yemeni and so on. But predominantly, mostly locals. And like I said, they live in the rural areas and various other parts of the country. Many of them were farm workers and mine workers, laborers and so on. And their progenies are Muslim, and alhamdulillah, they're there. Obviously, they need a lot of assistance for many reasons. The country came crashing with the financial woes that we had in the early 2000s. And subhanAllah, it resulted in so many people struggling to make ends meet. I don't think anyone died of hunger for the simple reason that it's very, very fertile, the land. So people like we would just plant our own things. To this day, if you come to my house, the backyard, you'll always see vegetables and fruits and a few other things that are growing. And we make, so to say people died, I think that was a little bit stretched. Yeah.
While you were growing up in Zimbabwe, like what was the biggest lesson you were taught as a child, whether that be from your parents? You said your father was quite influential as well, siblings, teachers.
I think one of the biggest lessons was to respect everyone. It's something that shaped me to who I am today. Respect everyone, and it does not mean that you agree with them. That's something that a lot of people fail to learn as they grow older. They think if you disagree with someone, you hate them. And if you disagree with someone, you've got to think of ways of bringing them down. But no, if you can disagree with someone and respect them completely, look, I respect you. You're a human being. You have a right in your own way, your capacity that's God given to make decisions and so on. And you've chosen different from me. With that disagreement, I respect you fully. So that's something I've learned from a very young age.
That's a really good lesson as well, because there are so many differences. But if we concentrate on what's common, alhamdulillah, we can.
I think something I could add to that is because we grew up in a multicultural, multi-religious society. The schools I went to, predominantly Christian, and a small number of Muslims and Jews and a few others. And so we interacted quite well, and from that young age, you realize and you learn that, these are the people I went to school with and so on. So it builds you in that direction.
Was apartheid an issue in Zimbabwe the way it was in South Africa?
Yes, there was apartheid up to 1980. And literally, it was very bad in the sense that, based on your skin color, you're allowed in certain areas and you're not allowed in certain, to live and to work and so on. Okay. And at certain times, if your color is this, then you're not allowed in, at certain times out, and you're allowed and so on. It all changed in just pre-1980 when independence happened from Britain. And then the barriers were being broken slowly but surely.
Was the name changed then as well, or did it change?
Yes, the name changed in 1980. It's sometime in 79. It used to be Rhodesia, and then it changed from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and then it changed to Zimbabwe.
Now, being a Mufti, right, we hear the term Mufti, but a lot of people don't know what that actually entails. What does that entail?
So globally, there's a few types of Muftis that you could have. In my case, a person appointed by the national body of Muslims to lead the department of fatwa, of issuing religious edicts. So I became the Mufti. And like I said, it is part of the main, or one of, it's the biggest Islamic body that is a national body. However, sometimes when it's a Muslim country, you have the government that comes in to appoint someone as the Mufti of the country. And they have a committee of Muftis as well. So that would also be the title Mufti. And then in some schools of thought, when you study beyond a certain point, they qualify you, or you graduate as a person who's qualified to issue religious edicts. So they call you Mufti. So there is all of that.
Now, is there anything else that you're interested in growing up? As in, if you want a mufti, do you think you would have done something else instead?
Yes, in fact, I was going to follow medicine and I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. It was always my dream. And I was working in that direction. And because I'd studied Islam so much and I was already a hafiz of the Quran, and I was an imam in the masjid from the age of 14. I used to lead Taraweeh, and mashallah, I enjoyed it because I know that I had memorized the Quran, and it was quite, we use the term solid, in the sense that the hifz was okay. I'd like to think that some of the people would actually be frightened to correct me simply because they would be surprised this man's made a mistake, As we grew older and